Hey everyone, this is the fifth episode of the Edge podcast for CHROs. My name is Varun. I'm your host. With me, I have Nisha, who's my co-host as well. And tonight, our guest is Akshay. So before we go deeper into who Akshay is and what this podcast is going to be about, I'm just going to quickly brief what our last podcast was about. So we spoke to Andrew Gobran, who is from Doist. So he's a people operations generalist based out of Minnesota. And then, so what we discussed in the last podcast was more around culture setting in a remote organization, because Divas is an organization that has 90 employees spread across 33 countries and sort of has been remote since day one. And that's a pretty interesting aspect to really understand how they might have gone about with their onboarding process, or how they help their employees and their employees and the people who've got promoted to really success plan out the success for the first 90 days, let's say, or during the entire course of the year as well. How does mentorship really happen in there, and essentially what are the futuristic and policies that could probably fall in place because of the pandemic, that would really sort of make more such companies like Doist become sort of mainstream. So let me introduce to you our guest for tonight, Akshay. So Akshay is responsible for leading the India business Space Matrix. He has 16 years of experience in the real estate sector with specific focus on project management, design, and general management. Besides the profit and loss of businesses, he is responsible for evaluating impact of design on clients' businesses, and for overviewing end-to-end delivery of projects, where he acts as a point of escalation. Additionally, he's very passionate about technology, and he can and how it can be utilized to enhance experiences of people while utilizing beautifully designed spaces. He comes with rich experience of having managed over 20 million square feet of projects spread across 40 cities in India. Akshay has worked on a wide spectrum of projects with clients in retail, corporate development, and institutional sectors. So before joining Space Matrix, Akshay was the director of project management services at Cushman and Wakefield. He has obtained Bachelor of Architecture from VNIT Nagpur and has a postgraduate degree in project management from School of Planning and Architecture, New Delhi. Akshay, would you like to introduce yourself to the guests as well?
I think when you've done most of it, as you said, I represent a design and design build firm. Basically, designs our DNA. We do workplace design. I'm responsible for the India P&L, and as you mentioned, I'm very passionate about technology. I love how technology can create experiences, and that becomes even more vital in today's time and age. And how the workplace can create an impact for an organization and not just a beautiful design. So yeah, these are some of my passions that I pursue with my work.
So Nisha and I have been actually discussing a lot around what the remote policy would look like, what compliance would look like in all our previous episodes. And I think a lot of people could sort of skip over the fact that, hey, look, physical offices aren't going to vanish overnight. They're here to stay. This is going to evolve better. And a lot of companies are still, are in the process of strategizing, because, I mean, from what I've heard, I mean, pretty much, I think we're all going back to offices by June and July. Nisha and I both personally know we're dreading it so much because we've enjoyed staying at home a lot. But I think for a lot of people who think that office might be a good place to really foster that collaboration in that environment, I think that a lot of companies would also want to accommodate both their own business ROI in it, and as well as the employee experience as well, retain both of those amazing aspects and sort of design the new office spaces. And so we're going to be delving into a lot of those questions for tonight. So let me start with the first one, right? Which something I was very curious about. With the office reopening challenges at the horizon, like we were just discussing at the outset, Akshay, what do you think are the current trends that you've been observing, the change in attitude, and essentially around how offices will really evolve?
Yes, I think last year we carried out a survey at the beginning of the pandemic, I think April or May. And at that time, we were trying to figure out what were people missing when they were working from home. I think it was an outset of the pandemic. As you mentioned, most of us were happy with the fact that we didn't have to traverse for hours in a metro or in a car and then get to office and get tired even before starting our first whatever work that we had to carry out. I think that is the enjoyable period of work from home. But I think what people realized thereafter was the fact that ability to interact one-on-one, ability to be able to collaborate with your colleagues, ability to do face-to-face interactions, these were big deterrents, so to say, from an individual growth perspective and a team growth perspective. And I think over the last 6 or 7 months, what we've seen is while those concerns still are there, I think one other element which is cropping up is the fact that there's no delineation between personal and professional life. So you're bound to get a call at 10 in the evening or 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning. You can't. I mean, you're always working. And I think that element of always working is getting on to people in terms of their work-life balance, so to say. So I think these three elements of ability to co-create, having the ability to have face-to-face interactions, and wellness, which is going to be the mainstay of development of new offices or renovation of existing offices. I think that's going to be one of the most crucial factors.
Nisha, I was curious about this though. I mean, actually made some pretty great points here in terms of, hey, look, the lines between your work life and your professional life is actually blurring. In fact, it already has. And of course, I think we've all been victims of the point that, hey, we've got to stay up late night working, or we're sort of compromising the sanctity of our own home for doing work that we don't really have complete ownership of in most cases, right? Nisha, I mean, what do you think about this? What are your opinions around this aspect though? In terms, because I think we discussed about this behavioral shift happening before as well. And while Akshay has said that, he's made a very valid point that, hey, look, people might want to go back because they miss the one-on-one collaborations. But do you think there has been any change at all in terms of how employees have changed in their own behavioral space?
I think the biggest change and what we have realized is work is not the office, right? Because earlier, our work was always in the office, right? And it was 9 to 5. These were the two big factors for me, at least, because when I went into work, I was tuned in, and I had work mode on. And it always felt like, work only happens in the office with colleagues. But the pandemic kind of showed me that work is not 9 to 5. That's not a great thing. Akshay mentioned wellness. And I think work is not really in the office, right? It can happen anywhere. And the office just kind of is an enhancer to some extent, and I don't know, Akshay can add more, but I think that the future, the space is going to be something where people want to collaborate more, be, more human than, because work is something that you can even do at home or anywhere else. I think the office will kind of bring out engagement and collaboration more than work. So it'll be great, Akshay, to hear what you have to say to that.
I
And
think
how will how will design enhance that?
you've hit it bang on the head. I think the biggest change is earlier we were designing workspace from a workspace perspective. So the operative work was work, right? And everything that we planned for, designed for, was first thinking, how do you take care of the functional requirements pertaining to work? I think that shift of from a workspace, it's actually going to be a culture space. It's not going to be a workspace anymore. So work, as you rightly said, can be done from anywhere, can be done from home, but development of organizational culture. And as Varun was mentioning, the last podcast spoke about culture setting in a remote environment. That is extremely difficult. Yes, I'm sure people have been able to achieve to a certain extent, but I mean, going and patting somebody on the back and saying that great job done is not similar to going and giving a 1 hour of a dialogue or a monologue of saying that you did a great job. I mean, that impact, or walking out of a meeting room knowing you've crushed it versus actually walking out of a Zoom call saying that you've done it. So they're two very, very distinct aspects of the same behavior. And I think that culture is going to be built, it's going to be catered to in a workspace setting. And that's going to be the biggest change. And I mean, we would do, when we design, we look at, and the way we looked at earlier was that you would have the layer of functional aspects that needed to be taken care of. Then it was the employee visitor experience, customer experience that needed to be taken care of. And then it was the culture aspect or the brand aspect that had to be taken care of. So these were three distinct layers. Now the layers have been reversed. You look at first the culture and the brand, you look at the employee and visitor experience, and then you look at functional work experience. So this reversal is the change brought in by the pandemic, so to say.
That makes a lot of sense because earlier office spaces were designed for individual work, and now they're being more collaborative. And I think actually the point that you mentioned around that, look, when you walk out of a meeting room, physical meeting room in a physical space, I know this is science fiction to a lot of people, but we used to do this once a lot. Like we used to actually be in a place where, we really enjoyed being in each other's company. So I get the feeling that that feeling is really, irreplaceable almost. And I think that really stood out for me that look, they can never be a replacement for that. Just as the amount of Slack bots and the amount of Discord bots that have come to replace water cooler conversations, the reason they haven't found product market fit is because look, innately you cannot do that. You can't replace the sun. Same way you can't replace water cooler conversation actually meeting people in person, right? So actually, but you mentioned that now the layers have reversed. Like you first look at the culture of the organization, you look at the brand, and you look at the way that the place interacts in itself with its various stakeholders, like visitors, customers, employees as well. All of these things sound good in theory, but I really want to know how you actually go about executing. Could you run through a proper case study where, let's say, if I'm one of your clients, if I'm your prospect, how would you explain this to me in
Sure.
tangible outcomes? Could you
Sure.
explain a case?
I'll explain a very, very relevant case. And this was pre-pandemic when we
Yeah, sure.
started designing the office. It is for one of the largest consulting firms globally. And we were doing the headquarters for India. And what we got was a survey document which captured all the functional requirements of each cohort, each team member, as to how they would take care of day-to-day work and how we could remove those deterrents that are there in the current workplace to be able to provide for in the next workplace. But that was again very, very functional, right? And I think what we delved deeper with the client was the fact that how do you think, what's your end goal? I mean, one is obviously you want to take care of the deterrents, but what is it that you want at the end? And they were facing this problem even pre-pandemic, that they had only 35% of workforce coming to office, because most of them would be sitting out of client offices. Some of them would be working from airports. Some of them would be working from home. They wanted people to come back to the office to be able to share, to be able to have a culture of the organization which they feel proud of to be furthered. And that was the mainstay. And the other element that they weren't thinking at that time was that they were interacting with their clients in banquet halls or five-star hotels, places where they felt that they could provide that ambience to their clients, but then any and everything about the organization was conveyed through a PowerPoint presentation. You couldn't convey the culture of the firm through a PowerPoint presentation, right? So when we started working with them, we understood that clients could actually be taken through physical case studies of what stuff that they're doing or what the organization stands for or what they've done far more elaborately in a setting which is intimate in an office rather than actually setting it up in a banquet hall. So when we designed for these elements, taking into account how do you get people back to office? So we developed a space which is double height space, which has got a skylight, which feels as if you've actually come to an open cafe, and it's got a cafe right next to it where the barista is actually making coffee every morning, afternoon, evening. That kind of ambience actually pulls people back. People want to come to office to be able to collaborate with their colleagues. And as you were mentioning earlier, that you loved the fact that you were working from home. I think not most of us are fortunate enough to have bigger households, not living in nuclear families. We have people who live 7 or 8 people under the same roof with just 2 or 3 rooms, kids' education going in parallel. People need to break away from that as well to be able to do a head down work. They can't figure out how to find a space in the house where they can actually put 10 minutes of head down work. So all of those things, if you start catering to at office, and I think one more element is that what we've loved working from home was the fact that we could actually lift our legs on our couch and work. We could sit in the balcony, open out a book, relax ourselves for 10 minutes, and then do something where we had to do something which needed creative attention. All of those ambiences, all of those micro environments that you do feel when you're sitting amongst the plants and the birds in the nature outside in the balcony, can you create that in a workspace? Can you create all of those settings in a workplace itself, those ambient spaces in the workplace itself, so that whatever was that you were liking at home as an environment, that gets also covered in the workplace as well. So I think after the pandemic, when the client that I'm speaking about, they opened their office, they've already achieved more than 35% of people coming back to office. They've not sent out a single note saying that you need to come back. They just said that our office is open and this is what it looks like, and everybody is wanting to get back to the office. In fact, we made a basketball court in the office, so that's something that pulls back people as well.
For sure. I mean, nothing beats basketball and football at work. So, I mean, and the point that you mentioned that, look, remote work is not something that everybody can do. And I totally agree with that because, I mean, in one of the articles that Nisha and I were sort of writing for Money Control as well, around this entire space, I think we really went deep into this topic of remote working and how this is something that's not for everyone per se. Nisha, what are your thoughts on this though? I mean, do you think that people would love to go back to office for, for all of the missed aspects of collaboration and the in-person chemistry that I think we share as a team, as a culture? What do you think on that though? What are your thoughts?
It's much like how people are traveling, right, to famed Maldives right now. It's very much like that. It's about how because you're a caged animal, you want to be let loose. So if your office space is going to attract you with all the Starbucks coffee and the third wave, like not the pandemic, but the third wave coffee in Bangalore, and lets you play or lets you unwind, why not? I mean, I think initially all of these are going to be super tempting factors to be outside, but I guess Akshay can tell us what will remain, after all that euphoria that, hey, I get all of this at work, versus, once, let's say, we're a little freer, right, mentally, we're a little pandemic free, then what would those factors be that will always remain and will always attract us back to office, pandemic or not?
I think what to sort of make a point here, right? Holding that thought as well. I totally agree with Nisha, but here's the thing, right? So in all the conversations that I've had with other founders and with some of my colleagues as well, what I've learned is that, look, India, I mean, let's face it, it's not a country that can operate in the way that US startups and companies usually do. I mean, I work in the SaaS space and I've sort of been working for like 5-6 years in the same space. Even the concept of OKRs, which is basic goal setting, that is relatively new to India. I mean, a lot of people have told that, look, this is a concept that people are still trying to imbibe, still trying to implement. There are a lot of tools that people are trying to do it. What I'm pointing at is, look, in person office mein the kind of meetings and all the kind of mentorship that you get, right? Because a lot of people who just get into a new role or just get into the workspace or just starting their careers, to them, mimicking and shadowing their bosses and their peers actually help them get up to speed with a lot of things. And I think that the culture and the way that an office functions, the way that I mean, this is a thing about IKEA, right? IKEA has this architectural design that the entry is at one point, the exit is always at the opposite end of something, and that's done purposefully so that you actually go through all of their aisles and actually see the kind of the various furniture they have and the culture that they're trying to bring into the furniture world, and all of those sorts. And I think that the offices of the future will also be sort of in the same way, that they'd want to double down on cross-functional collaboration and all of those things, right? So actually, what are your thoughts on this, and adding to what Nisha said as well?
Yeah, so 2 points. One, as you mentioned, I think shadowing a mentor, that versus just looking at nuances, even when you're actually sitting across with your mentor in a client pitch, half an hour of just observing that guy versus reading a 500-page manual, they're very, very different experiences, right? So I clearly digital only is not the way forward. In fact, all the online only companies have offline offices for the same reason.
Right? I mean, especially the mannerisms that you look at a senior person, the way he conducts himself, the way he or she talks or even carries a conversation. I think that is something that a lot of people really get by observation. And I mean, no matter how many TV series you watch it, let's face it, you can never be all of those. You can never be the Don Draper of Mad Men or anything like that. So I totally get this. Yeah.
And I was going to just take that to our profession. So we are in the business of creating experiences, right? And to create that experience, for us, it's very important for us to understand what the client stands for, what the brand stands for, what the people stand for, that for whom you're creating that space. And for the last 1 year or well, let's say 8 odd months, we've been selling, or at least we've been talking about what we are proposing for that specific client virtually. Now, for us to gauge what is the impact of what we're presenting on a medium where would only 50% of the participants have their video on, rest of them have their video off, you're not even able to understand. So it's not a conversation as such, it's just presentation and then you're just waiting for feedback. Whereas if you're sitting in a room and making that presentation, the ability for you to pick up the room environment, pick up what's happening, people, how they're reacting, maneuver, or address questions, because in a medium like this, you don't know if you asked a question, I didn't answer, I don't know whether you're uneasy, not uneasy, you've understood it, not understood it. The physical cues beyond just the face are a lot many. So that ability to able to pick that up, I think that is in a in-person mode far more.
I entirely agree. Totally, it makes sense. So, going by the same chain of thought, right? Let me ask you like this really big, heavy question that I was, planning for weeks almost. That I needed to talk to someone like you to really get this out of my head. And I'm sure a lot of people who are listening to this podcast will sort of have the same question in their head as well too. So, so real estate as an industry, right? It's all 100% inflow of foreign direct investments and some regulatory reforms around the RERA Act and the GST as well, which actually gave us super good boost in 2020 alone. Like people weren't expecting a lot, but then, thankfully the pandemic didn't affect the entire industry as much. So the very first question that I have is, in the next 5-10 years, how do you, speaking purely in business terms again, right? How do you see the compound annual growth rate of the CAGR of this space growing, considering the possibility of, look, a lot of companies might actually switch to the hybrid model, wherein people are meeting quarterly or probably once a month or something like that. How do you project the CAGR growing?
Yeah. So I think year 2018 to 20 was the best for the real estate industry, specifically for the commercial real estate that I'm part of. I think it grew anywhere between 15 to 20%, depending on whether you were in Hyderabad or Mumbai or Delhi. But this growth last year was obviously a degrowth, right? So we looked at somewhere around 35-40% drop in terms of overall absorption, net absorption of space. In fact, this first quarter, January to March, is again 30-35% drop from last year, January to March quarter. So things weren't that great from an absorption perspective. I think most of the developers have seen that this is a challenge. And for that reason, the rentals are softening a bit. Landlords are willing to take on the capex of the space. So as an organization, cash flows are under stress right now. So landlords are coming forth and saying that, okay, we'll spend the capex for you. You rentalize that whole capex in a per month format. So some of these aspects which will help the tenants to take up space would obviously remove the deterrence to take up office space. The other aspects which were pertinent earlier were the fact that we were looking at density. Most of the offices that were getting set up in India, whether it was for large organizations as back offices or Indian startups that were looking at taking up space, I mean, the kind of allocated space for any individual was less than 3 odd feet of a workspace table. I think that density is going out of the window. I think you can't invite people, you can't get people to get excited about coming back to office when they're going to sit like this and work through the day, right? So you will tend to expand per individual space in the office. All the number of individuals might reduce who are coming to the office, but their per unit space will increase. The other aspects I spoke about, which is collaboration, co-creation, social spaces, these will take up a larger chunk of the portfolio. So earlier they were anywhere between 5 to 20% of the space that a client would allocate for their new office. These would be probably in excess of 30-35% of the office space. So all in all, by inducing these components, reducing the density, the amount of space that I would need probably for an office may be very, very similar to what I needed earlier, in spite of the fact that a part of my population would actually be working remotely or not working from the same office. So I think that that fundamental is strong. The other fundamental is that as a country, we have the right talent pool. We have the right business fundamentals. So for organizations to continue to invest in our country from a talent perspective will be there. And hence the overall growth that we've seen over the last few years in terms of space take up by organizations which are multinationals is going to continue. Indian startups are finding it easier to scale up at the moment. I mean, whatever we've been seeing in the news, number of unicorns coming up and stuff, all of that is a business environment, right? And those organizations would need office space. When you were talking about the SaaS-based delivery, I mean, before pandemic, we were working on a experiential software that we wanted to develop for workplace, and that unfortunately, by the time we got into the development phase, pandemic hit us. For the last 11 months, the team which we'd outsourced this to was working remotely. The amount of output that they generated in that 11 months versus what we've been able to generate over the last 1 month is almost equivalent, because now we were sitting together, the ability to be able to co-create, test ideas, put them into action, see how they're working. I think that would need people to come back to the office. And hence, CAGR wise, I think in the midterm, I'd say probably this year might not be that great, maybe very, very similar or a tad bit better than what it was last year. But I think in the midterm, expecting a 15 to 20% growth CAGR is possible. Probably it might actually exceed that number.
Yeah, some very interesting trends have actually come out from this, from your, opinion on this alone, right? One thing is that 2018 se leke 20, I think it was 2021, and up until then, you mentioned that the growth was sort of, fairly good as well. I think the reason why, because I feel like grade A office spaces, right? And for the benefit of our audience, grade A office space essentially means a fully serviced office space that's probably in a central business district or in a prime location, properly fully serviced wall amenities and everything. So I think, with the number of unicorns rising, I think the grade A office spaces and things like this will actually be on the rise as well too. The second trend, which I think sort of came out of this, was that look, people, the office space might be less congested and more sort of well planned in a way that everybody gets their own space as well too. So I'd like to sort of share my screen and show you this framework that I came across as well. So McKinsey had this pretty interesting framework as well. They call this the idea framework, and I feel that this is a pretty good starting point to really start thinking what the human-centered solutions would be looking like based on all the trends and all the possibilities that we've discussed so far in the podcast. So Akshay, could you probably guide our audience, or just share your opinion across all of these four buckets? And what the future of office space could look like around these aspects, because I think this does a pretty good job of covering a lot of business nuances that I think people would like to really know for themselves.
Sure. So, I mean, if you keep this here, I'd probably comment on
Yeah, I'll share the screen. Yeah,
the other. I think if you look at the first aspect of this, which is talking about work, but not talking about work from a perspective of what individual work is. It's talking about the fact that how work gets done between employees, between employee and a customer, and between customers. I think that enablement of not individual work, but work as a team, or work between a client and an employee of an organization, these aspects need workspace. So they will need to be designed for that. And I think what they've taken away from this is an individual work, right? And I think that's absolutely logical. Interactions will need space, and then the best space to actually do that would be your office space itself. I think the secondary aspect is the experience, right? What kind of experiences are you creating for your employees? What kind of experiences are you creating for your clients? I think that again is a mainstay and will need to be thought through very, very diligently to be able to understand that when I walk in as a potential employee, now if I were to attend a Zoom call and I was appearing for an interview, for me to be able to assess what the organization that I'm appearing for, what does it stand for? I can do as much of desktop study that I want to, but walking into that office, just looking at how the receptionist is talking to the others, how two colleagues are speaking to each other, how the space is, are they catering for some basic amenities at the workplace? I think that intuition, that ability to assess that place within the first 5 minutes you walk in is far higher than any amount of material that you'd read. So as a potential employee, my experience can be set in the right manner through the experience that I create from a workspace. So as you rightly mentioned, I think this framework focuses on the fact exactly what we spoke about earlier, where the layers are not as functional in nature, but more about experiences and more about culture creation and brand creation. I think this just goes ahead and augments that thought process.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Totally agree. Nisha, what are your thoughts on this?
I, sorry, what I was thinking was that Akshay, if you can just tell us a little about what is happening currently, in India and probably in adjacent Southeast Asia, right? Like what are some of the key trends that you're seeing, like real time, because we keep reading about this in newspapers, right? That today X company has taken up so much space, or we're also reading the reverse, that there are companies that are giving up space. So it'll be nice to hear from you as to what is really happening on ground.
Yeah.
If
So
you can also take some share some examples and sectors where you're seeing more space being taken and possibly given away, it'll be interesting to know.
sure. And I think the biggest example is the fact that if you talk about online only companies, right? I mean, you talk about uh, the Apples of the world, you talk about Google, you talk about Amazon. Uh, and if you pick up the newspapers and you Google all these three or four organizations over the last 6 months, all of them have committed to a decent amount of space, not just in India, across the region, across the globe as well. Now, some of them may have taken up space for a data center. Somebody might have taken space for a warehouse. Somebody might have taken space for development function. So I think almost all of them are reprioritizing. All organizations are reprioritizing as to what real estate space means for them, and I think they're going ahead and committing nonetheless. Uh, I think the footprint where it's reducing is where the workspace is hitting the P&L and not giving the desired output. So you're right. I mean, as I said, net absorption last year was down by 40%. That is primarily for the spaces that weren't performing for the organization. So they said, why keep paying the rental for the next 6, 8, 10 months? Let us go ahead and remove this from our portfolio and reinvest this capital back. Probably it was a suburban office which didn't make sense, or probably it was a CBD office, but their large set of catchment actually sits in the suburban region for the office. So now clients are committing to offices. It's just that the pandemic is actually creating a blip, and I think the second wave is affecting it even more, where the decisions are taken, but the checks are yet to be written, because they're just waiting for this to die down a bit, so that people can actually be comfortable coming back to the office. So it's only a matter of when, and not a matter of if or not.
So basically, it's just a psychological barrier that people are just waiting to, for times to sort of, fizzle out a bit and just get over that. Essentially, right?
Correct.
Very interesting.
Yeah, nice to know actually, Akshay, because it's kind of heartening to see that, despite all the odds, right, things are still happening, maybe a little here and there in terms of timing, but things are happening. I just have one more question for you, really, but it's a two-part one. If you can, take us through one, how are organizations planning and designing for wellness and safety? Something that wasn't really talked about a lot earlier, but today if I have to go back to office, yes, you can induce me with all the lovely coffee and all the games, but if I don't feel safe, I will still question that decision, right? So how are organizations planning for that? Number one. Number two, I also believe that travel and in-person meetings could still be kind of affected a little bit, in the near future, or even possibly, where we can avoid travel and in-person meetings, right? So how are organizations designing space for this? If you can also talk about the kind of new technology that people are looking at in within the workspace, um, to redesign it like the way we currently have experienced our own homes, right? We've kind of adapted our homes to look like the workspace. So what would the new workspace look like?
Sure.
Sorry if I've asked you too many
No, no, I'll
questions
go one
there.
by one. So I think safety is of paramount concern, and safety is obviously design as well as practices, right? So it is about how you create surfaces, how you create an environment which is easy to clean. At the same time, it is non-microbial from a perspective that it doesn't provide for an ambience to grow. But at the same time, what kind of practices can you bring in to be able to make sure that the office is getting hygiene, sanitized every now and then and stuff? From a design perspective, safety is a given in the sense what kind of materials are we choosing today? I think right from a laminate to a worktop to a metal surface to a glass surface, every organization, every industry leader for that matter is actually investing in R&D to make materials which are not prone to growth of viruses, right? So I think that is a given, and I think most of these would now be available off the shelf, and you can actually start using it from a material perspective in the office. Wellness, however, is again a function of design, but at the same time, design plus what HR practices can you bring in to be able to further the cause of wellness. So from a pure design perspective, the kind of air quality measurement, I mean, being in Delhi, obviously looking at the air quality that dips November, December, that is already a concern. And we saw that some of the developers were actually coming forth, the landlords are coming forth and saying that, okay, we will provide for systems at the high side itself, so that as a tenant, you don't need to invest much on the low side. Now, some of these factors would continue. They would now get to better filters to be able to take care of microbes and stuff like that. What kind of air conditioning, circulation of air you have in the space, that will take care of. So, but these are again systems or technologies that you can implement in the office. But I think a bigger ambit is the HR practices. How would you create an environment for people to actually feel that there is physical wellness, there is mental wellness, there is financial wellness, how all of these tie back together to overall wellness of employees? I think one interesting factor that I've realized earlier, employees never asked this question. They thought wellness was in our sphere of influence and not the organizational sphere of influence. Now they're looking at organization providing for wellness, whether it be specifications, the kind of materials that we used, and stuff like that. The next level, besides taking care of HR and the kind of physical elements to be used, I think the next level is wellness created through ambience, through the microenvironments. And as I said earlier, how do you induce the sense of smell into the workplace? How do you induce auditory functions as part of this? So if I'm saying that, okay, a good coffee is available, but it's not just good coffee available, it's good coffee available in a cafe kind of a setup where it smells like a coffee shop. I mean, even Starbucks uses fragrances to create that ambience and not just the coffee itself, right? How do you create that? And how do you then play cafe music there so that when you're actually going to that coffee shop within your office itself, you are actually feeling as if you come to Starbucks, the kind of interaction that happen in that environment versus the kind of interaction that happen in your canteen in the office are very, very different, right? So creating those kind of environments using other senses other than just visual appeal, I think all of those will enhance the level of wellness. And I mean, the idea is to break away from your monotony of your work, right? So can you spend an hour doing something, or doing a discussion with a colleague, 30 minutes sitting in a coffee shop, 20 minutes doing something else? So those kind of movements through what kind of work you want to do, is your office providing for that environment? I think that's going to be crucial. I mean, I'll give you an example. We've created in our own office, we were creating a den of sorts, which we call Black Maria, which is a dark room, minimal lighting, and it's got a hi-fi music system, and the entire walls are covered with acoustics. Now, when we started ideating about it, everybody said nobody's going to use this space at all because it is dingy. Why would you want to get into a space like this? But we still went ahead and built it and said, okay, we'll scrap it if it's not getting used. Today, that is the most sought after real estate in our office, because people go play heavy metals if they, I mean, whatever suits them, right? If it's a ghazal, if it's Sufi music, if it is whatever, that's meditative working, right? Getting into an environment like that, music's coming the way you want it, at the volume that you want it, and you being able to meditatively work. I think that kind of environment is something that's going to be, such kind of use cases will be tested far more in the office spaces now.
Like the
something
reference.
funny.
Sorry, Nisha, go ahead.
Something funny is coming to my mind. Like earlier, we used to replicate, like when the pandemic started, we replicated the office at home. I think now we will replicate the home in the office, like place to sleep also.
Absolutely right. It's not just
Entirely,
going to
yeah.
be office or the home at office. It's going to be a hotel at office. It's going to be a coffee shop at office. It'll be all environments, micro environments, which you break away from. If somebody is from Delhi, then a Roots Cafe, right? I mean, for us we're designers, right? For us to actually go and sit in a Roots Cafe versus ideating in the office are very, very different experiences. That 30 minutes, you can actually ideate far more at a Roots Cafe sitting under a tree versus you can do that in the office. Can you actually create that environment at the office itself so that you don't need to step out from a security perspective, from a safety perspective, yet get that environment at the office? I think you said the right thing. It's going to be multiple environments at the office now.
Makes a lot of sense. In fact, I love your reference to the moon and the Black Mirror as well. And I personally relate to the fact that look, we need a lot of meditative centers in the office. So here's the thing, right? I mean, I also so in my office as well, where I work, the organization that I work in, we've also got these little isolation spaces. I mean, I call them isolation cells, but they're not really isolation cells. The reason because they're like proper glass chambers, and the moment you close the door, it's pin drop silence. It is the most quietest place on planet Earth, I'd say, and that's one of the places where I really got any work done. Uh, in fact, I think the only time I used to come out of the day when I either had to use the washroom or when I had to go out for lunch or something. That's the only two times I came out of the day as well. And I see how office spaces are being visualized in a way that they will become a good germinating ground for a lot of environments. So Akshay, to sort of conclude this and to sort of give insights to our viewers as well. Let's say that look, by June, July, or by the year end, let's say a lot of companies would want to start planning their journey back to the office as well, considering that the pandemic sort of subsides in some time or whenever it does for that matter, right? What do you think, and considering all the trends and the points that we've spoken, where do you think they should be starting it? What should be the starting point be like? How should they basically plan their way back in terms of both reorganizing the architecture, probably working with someone like your organization as well? Could you help them take them from 0 to 1 basically? What would the new journey look like?
Sure. I think anything like the framework that you showed, the McKinsey framework or any other, I think it's most important now than ever to understand what your organization is all about, right? Understanding what your brand stands for, what your culture stands for, how the framework mentioned how an employee interacts with an employee, how an employee interacts with the customer. Doing all of that analysis is very, very important, because gone are the days that design is going to be cookie cutter. Design is going to be built to suit for your organization, right? So for that, it is important that what does your organization stand for is very, very important. Now, to that effect, what we've done is, to give you an example, our own office in Gurgaon, our studio in Gurgaon, we call it Beta Lab. And again, owing to the pandemic, what we've done is we've created such micro environments in the office. And what we've said is, if you're building your own office, rather than experimenting and saying, okay, let me build a Black Maria, as I mentioned, and it doesn't work for you. So then you wasted that space, you wasted that capex, and you've committed to that for 9 years. Because if I build it and if I spend a certain amount of dollars on it, why will I take it off the next day or after a month of it not working? What we've done is we've created these micro environments at our own office, and what we're encouraging clients is that you come down to our office, send a team of 2 or 3 people, let them work out of that space for a week, and let them figure out different environments, and let them say that, okay, for our kind of work, this environment is absolutely a must. I think we should have this, and these 5 don't work for us. I think that ability to figure out what is custom for me, which will work, I think that's going to be crucial, whichever way, whichever framework you figure it out through. But I think that is going to be the most crucial aspect of design. In fact, if you are okay, I'll actually show you some.
Yeah, please, by all means.
Speaking about is very difficult to understand that purely through words. If I can show some pictures to get you to.
For sure, yeah. Because I was just wondering about the same aspect, right? I mean, while surveying and asking people, hey, look, this might be important in our space, this might not be, is very important. And it'd be great to see some examples around this as well.
Sure. 1 sec, sorry.
Nisha, what would be the 1 or 2 things that you'd like at the office space for sure? Like deal breaker types for you?
Nap space. And
Huh?
no one judging me if I nap.
Oh yeah, nap space is super important. I feel. I mean, even scientifically speaking, right? Naps are like a lot more productive than you'd imagine. I mean, like
It's
it's come to a
very
point where I
productive.
need my nap in the day.
Yeah,
Like it's
it
a
really
non-negotiable for
enhances.
me.
Yeah, it enhances my thinking. It gives me a break. Otherwise, I feel like my brain is always on, and I don't like that. So there has to be some way to switch it off.
For sure, for sure. But I think a lot of office spaces are getting open to having pets in the office and a bunch of these things as well, because I think it generally uplifts the mood as well too. So I think that'd be pretty nice. But I definitely like a gaming center as well, like a proper full-fledged gaming center in the office.
You'd be surprised to know how many cricket
Yeah.
pitches we were building pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. How digital cricket is back in the office. How, as I said, basketball court is no more for outdoors; it's indoors. I think all of these, the ability to be able to break away from day-to-day routine of work, I think that's going to be most crucial through some of these uh, ability to play in the office as well, besides just work.
And what you mentioned, right? Something so, like something so basic, but to deliberate on, right? Everything we could do outside, we want to replicate and do inside. Just reduce our, whole thing of going out, right? So we want it all, but we want it all inside.
And not just because we don't want to go out, but also because of the fact that you at the end of the day we want productivity as well, right? I mean, we don't want to create an environment where we've taken a 20-acre plot and we're actually taking a farmhouse and developing our office, and for every activity you've got to move what, a kilometer and a half to be able to get there and then do that activity. I mean, we're creating these uh, as points where you break away from your day-to-day work. You're able to get your mind back in order, and then you get to the next activity rather than just a break in isolation. Sorry
And
about that.
yeah, no problem. Have people spoken about what is a productivity enhancer at work, from a design perspective?
Yeah, what has your observations been? Like, what have been the top 5 asks for you across all your clientele?
I mean, when you said productivity, something I got reminded of. I think the whole analysis that we carried out after the surveys during the pandemic, I think one big element was that productivity and effectiveness are two different things. Productivity may be very, very high when people are working from home, but effectiveness probably is going down. So it'll need to be a measure which will probably come up subsequently, where currently organizations measure only productivity. Probably it'll be a combination of productivity and effectiveness, where you're spending lesser time doing more versus just spending little time but getting a lot more done out of that. So it's not just the physical act, but the outcome based act as well. I just wanted to take you through some of these slides, just pictorial representation of it. So I think one big element that we spoke about in our whole discussion was these human moments, right? I think offices will be designed around human moments, how employees interact, how clients and employees interact, how clients interact amongst themselves. This is going to be one big area. I think creativity, where people need to come, brainstorm together, create something, that will be fostered through offices mostly. And then technology, which will create connections, and not just ability to connect, but to create connections. I think that will be the way forward. Some of the pictures I wanted to show, these are some of the spaces that we've designed, but just to give you a sense of what comes forth. So this is the cafe that I was talking about, where you're not essentially in an office environment anymore. So you do that, you want to catch up with a colleague or an external visitor, catch up with that person here, and then go back to your workspace. Spaces like these, which are co-creation spaces, which have got various kinds of environments created. So you've got a high table, you've got a low table, you've got team discussion areas, which are out there in the open. So these are not meeting rooms. These are to create that buzz where you feel that there's a lot happening around you and your adrenaline kicks in and you're able to do more during that period. Social spaces, I think this is culture building. Social spaces, I think these are going to be the mainstay. Earlier these were thought of as time wasters, so to say. where organizations and I mean, I'm not being anti-national here, but I think Indian organizations, so to say, felt that provision of such spaces in the office were a deterrent. But I think when we saw WeWorks doing it and some of these co-working spaces doing it, I think even the Indian corporations have understood that these are integral part of the organization and culture building activity. And I think these will let people be what they want to be rather than actually just look at so this will give rise to individualism within the office space as well, and not just at your home. As I was talking about the client experience, the potential employee experience or a candidate experience, to be able to get into a space like this. Now, this is the reception of one of the offices that we've designed. You get to a space like this and you're waiting for your turn to step into a interview booth or interview room. You're actually getting the essence of that organization within seconds there, right? You don't need to spend time to research what the organization stands for. And then you know whether you are a person like this or you aren't. So you can make that decision. How the interview goes is the secondary aspect, but you can decide, oh, I'm not a person like this. I'll not be comfortable in this. I'm very good. So at least that bit of calibration both ways has happened even before the interview started. Client branding and experience, how do you cater to, so I mean, this is a snapshot of our own studio, but for us, client means that we need to actually sit with them, ideate what materials to use, what kind of colors to use, what kind of products to use, to be able to use technology as well as actual physical products with the client in one space, which can actually take days otherwise, to create a space which can actually do that over a couple of discussions. I think these kind of empowering spaces to be able to do your work alongside with your partners or your clients very quickly and get the output, I think these will be essential. And as I was saying, wellness, right? So it's not about just good air quality or materials which are non-toxic or will not create or hydration or just a yoga camp or a Zumba class in the evening. It's about the environment that you provide, which actually gets you to mentally relax as well and not just think about work all the time. I think, yeah, that was about it.
Very interesting stuff. Nisha, what are your thoughts on this? I mean, to me, it really seemed like the embodiment of everything that we discussed and what the future of really office space would look like. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think I'm waiting to go back to office.
For an office like that, I think anybody would.
I
would live in the office.
I am really glad to hear that.
No, for real. I was looking at it. I'm like, hey, I wouldn't mind living here. I wouldn't mind being abducted by the company, just like being there, because I can definitely see this the way that the way that interactions were designed. Right from experiencing cultures and different aspects of it in different places, right? I think that really brings out the sense of how the Indian climate is changing, and in the sense that a lot of organizations would want to definitely try something like this. And Akshay, it's been great discussing with you and really understanding different aspects of it. And trust me, the work of Space Matrix, trust me, it's class apart. It's a class apart. I think people would really, I would definitely quote it in our conversations going forward as well with our other podcast guests and everywhere else too. Because I definitely, and one of the reasons me and Nisha sort of handpicked, and I really have to thank Nisha for doing all the legwork here, for handpicking this topic and really being open and talking about this, right? Because it's something I think we should all address, and a lot of people might not do it, but I feel that this is important for everyone to really understand. Hey, look, office space is not going to disappear, and it's important that, look, you consider what the future of it would look like, how it would evolve, what sort of technology would come in there, what sort of things would what would be policy changes alone, right? All these things. So actually, it's been great talking to you, and we're going to be back with another episode of the Edge podcast for CHROs very soon as well. So all details of Akshay and Space Matrix, everything will be linked along with this post as well. And feel free to share this. Feel free to reach out to Akshay or me or Nisha and you first if you'd like to, give you a warm introduction as well. I'm more than happy to do that as well. Thanks a lot and take care, everyone. See you again.